Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. I have my coffee in my Let's Talk Supply Chain mug. And remember, you can get this mug and because it goes to the person that engages with us the most in a month. And we're going to be announcing that winner again in a couple of weeks. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the host of the Blended podcast, which is the newest conversation in diversity and inclusion. What else? There's so many things that are going on. This past weekend, I was in a baseball tournament. Well, actually, it's modified slow pitch. I did about 25. I played about 25 innings. 22 of those I played as catcher. And so I did like something like 600 squats this weekend. So just a little bit sore, maybe a little bit tired this morning. But this show is going to be amazing because we've got Audrey Ross back as my guest. And we've got so many amazing things going on. So let's get started and share with you exactly what is going on at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So first, we've got our newest episode of this week, and I am talking to Karen from Notably PR. You might be thinking, well, what does PR have to do with supply chain? PR has everything to do with supply chain. Brands are working with Notably to get their name out there, to talk about the thought leadership that they are talking about internally, create the stories that you supply chainers are looking for from the brands that you want to work with. So go and check that out. It's over on letstalksupplychain.com. We've also got it wherever you subscribe to the show. What else is happening? Oh, it's totally messed up all of my, I had this all lined up and it's totally messed it up. So now I've got to go find it. I want to talk about Blended. Our newest episode of Blended came out, I think it was last week. And it should be right here. Here it is. All right. So immigration and identity. This was an amazing, amazing, amazing episode. If you have not gone to check it out, go and check it out. You can find it on letstalksupplychain.com under Blended, or you can find it under the Blended podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. We had 4 incredible individuals. I mean, you all might know Shneha, Martha Lumatete. We've got Shauna from Wayfair, and they just talked about what it was like to come to a new country and, you know, all about their stories, which were incredibly, incredibly inspiring. And something that I didn't even know, but we talked about the word Asian because it's used to describe a lot of different cultures around Asia. And when people of Indian descent actually go to apply for a job, Asian is sometimes the only category that they can actually check mark. So I highly recommend to go and check out this episode. It was great. We loved it. And they really, really shared some great perspectives. We also talked about what was happening in the US around Asian hate. And it was crazy because Stephanie really got a chance to talk about what is happening there and really was able to tell her story. And she felt heard at the end of that episode, which is what Blended is all about. All right. So next, what are we talking about? We're talking about my LinkedIn learning course. That's right. The fundamentals of sustainable supply chain. This came out a couple of weeks ago. Feedback is coming in hot and it's amazing. People are really, really enjoying this course. So go and check it out. It's under LinkedIn Learning. I would love to know what you guys think about it as well. What else have we got? We've got shops. So we've got some really incredible merch over on letstalksupplychain.com. Collaboration is the future of business. We've got some merch that says that as well. We've got some stickers. It's a logistics thing you wouldn't understand. We've got, of course, our mug and our supply chain dictionary. We've even just added a trucker's cap as well. So we're going into Christmas. And remember, because of the supply chain issues, you want to order the stuff for your loved ones early on. All right, next we are talking about our events that are coming up. So this week is a huge week. On Thursday, I'm going to be doing a LinkedIn Live with Easy Mile talking about real automation for real supply chains. And then right after that, I am going to head over to the New York Supply Chain meetup, and I'm going to be a panelist talking about the changing anatomy of industry events. On Wednesday, I'm going to be running a conversation about diversity and inclusion. Plus, it's going to be a wine tasting. I don't know if you have a chance to register for this, but it's going to be a really fun discussion. And then again on Thursday, we are going live with Abby Baird in Coming in Hot. And I think she's going to be talking about how to use LinkedIn properly and for your career and everything to do with that as well, which is going to be cool. And then, of course, in January, we've got Manifest that's coming up. I just heard that the closing out party is with Ludacris, apparently. So that's going to be crazy. Anyways, now it's time to bring up Audrey Ross. Good morning. How are you? That was a lot to cover. Holy moly.
Yeah, there's a whole lot going on with you. I think we're in the same position because I had a long day yesterday too. And so I think that fatigue is real. So
you have your coffee?
yes, I do.
Yes, there we go.
And by coffee, I mean 2 shots of espresso.
Did you use your Nespresso this morning?
Of course I did, yeah.
Nice. I love mine. I have to tell you, I tried the whole beans thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't for me. I'm not a barista.
Yeah. Like, that's a lot of work for me to make a coffee. So no, let's have what is it? You've automated one of your daily processes.
I totally have. That's a good one. Well, I want to hear from you. Do you guys use Nespresso? What do you use? Instant coffee? Yeah. I want to know what you guys are drinking in the morning. But first, Audrey, for anyone who doesn't know who you are.
No one knows who I am. So my name is Audrey Ross. I'm here in Toronto, in Canada. And I'm an in-house logistics and customs specialist at Orchard Custom Beauty. So Orchard is an award-winning business-to-business company that does cosmetics, beauty tools, and bath accessories. So yeah, awesome. A lot of international trade. Yeah, what else do I do? I'm part of Fashion Group in Toronto. This is my last year doing that. And I'm on the OIT board, the Organization of Women in Trade. So yeah, I keep busy.
Awesome. Well, Davin says good morning. Everybody says good morning. Oh, I don't even have, look, I am totally off my game. I don't even have my personal LinkedIn up right now.
And how will we know what's happening over there?
It's okay. It's not working anyway. Welcome to live shows, everybody. All right. So what are we talking about next? We are talking about the question of the week, which I need to find, by the way. So what happened was StreamYard kicked me out right as I had everything totally set up for us. And so that's why I'm scrambling for all of my screen shares. Anyways, besides that, our question of the week was, which 3 words would you use to describe yourself? I really like this one because, we like to mix it up here, right? We have questions about supply chain. We've got questions about leadership. We want people to reflect and really think about things in their own lives as well. And that's what this question was about for me. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the amount of people that commented on this one. Yeah. And I know that when I shared mine on Instagram, I think I put genuine, authentic, and thoughtful as my 3 words that I would use. Yeah. What 3 words would you use? And of course, to the audience that's watching right now, what 3 words would you use to describe yourself? You didn't think about this one, did you?
No, I would say loyal.
Yeah.
Eccentric and...
Oh, eccentric. Got it.
What else?
You have to think about this one.
Nurturing. Yeah, I don't know who I am. I really.
Well, everybody in the comments are still talking about our coffee. We've
Well,
got
yeah.
Rick that's got a Keurig. Davin says fresh ground and Imtiaz.
MTS. That's the every morning automation. I love it.
Instant coffee in his supply chain mug because he was our winner
He was
last week. I
our-
love that. I love that. So let me share some of the comments that we had on the question of the week. Rhonda, who's watching right now, says curious, heartfelt,
I'm
and
curious.
human. I love those words.
I'm
Nicole says
pretty curious.
authentic, optimistic, and determined.
Hmm,
And Philip says optimistic, open minded, and creative. And he actually says that he uses those three words on his CV. So,
interesting.
this is actually a really great
Yeah.
exercise for your resume as well. Definitely, definitely put those on there. Erica says unique, exuberant, and driven. Dr. Mudashir Ahmed says 3 is a short limit to describe complex phenomenon. I love that. Anyways, we had some really, really, really great ones over there, and we will put the link in the comments as well. All right, so let's get to my thoughts and coffee post, which I have to pull up again because it didn't work for me. Anyways, here we go. So on Sunday, I always post leadership. I post about leadership,
Yeah.
and this past Sunday, I spoke about dreams. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I do in a lot of my headshots, I do wear a shirt that talks about dreams. Dreams don't work unless you do, or
Yeah.
don't quit your daydream. Love more and talk less, which is a saying that's always really resonated with me. And so we talked about dreams in this particular post, and we talked about how those dreams and like what does it mean to hold on to your dreams? What does it mean to make them a reality? And waiting for them to come true without taking action is something that is not going to help with you, moving forward and making your dreams happen. So what did you think about this one, Audrey?
Oh, I think it's so true. I mean, there's an aspect of faith, like being able to be optimistic that your dreams will come true, but then the reality of it is a lot of them you have to do. You have to put in some effort and figure out how, what are the steps that you can take to get there.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's sort of this, it's nice to have sort of big picture, sort of fantasy goals, but then it's what choices are you making in the day to day to get there. And I have to work on that sometimes because, I have to remind myself when I'm saying yes to things, like, well, does this line up with, if I'm trying to get over here and this yes takes me over here, that might be fun and interesting, but how am I going to get back to my vision, right? So
That is so true, right? Because you can have a dream of doing something and there's so many opportunities when you embark on these journeys.
yeah,
There's so many opportunities that pop up. And it's too many times I think sometimes we say yes
yeah,
to everything just because
yeah.
we think we need to
It
say
sounds
yes to
great.
everything.
Yeah,
But I think you're right. We have to take a little bit of a step back and really think about the opportunity and what does it mean to where we want to go or where we want to be. And maybe it lines up a little bit, maybe it lines up a lot, and maybe it doesn't line up at all. And I think, saying no sometimes is almost liberating,
yeah,
right? It's hard to go through that process to get to yes or no, but then when you say yes or no, it's really liberating if you're able to take that moment to really think about how it aligns.
yeah. Because we don't just flip into like, here's our dream or here's our goal and flip into it, right? There was a sort of a book I read that it's like it's all those little decisions that you make, right? Every day that you decide to do this means that you're not doing that, So if you can try to really understand and have awareness around what your choices might lead to, and then you're not surprised when it's like, oh, I haven't achieved this one dream. And you're like, well, if you didn't put any effort to it, and you were choosing everything else, then no, like, that's probably not going to happen. So,
And every little step helps,
yes.
right? Every little step, even like a baby step, I think that's really important to talk about too, is that
Yeah.
every moment that you're spending towards that dream and just sort of doing something towards that goal is always going to make a difference, even though sometimes you're kind of sitting there going, is
When
it
is
really
this
making a
gonna
difference?
happen? Yeah.
Because I'm not entirely sure.
I've been working so hard for so long. When is this going to work out? And yeah.
All right, let's get to our supply chain topics. We've got three really, really fun ones. All right, so the first one I have to say is a little bit outdated
Yeah.
because I believe as of yesterday there was 70 cargo ships that are stuck waiting off the California coast as shipping ports hit their fourth record backup in 3 weeks. I mean, we were talking about this in January, February,
Yeah,
and
but they
now it's
cleared
rearing its
it.
ugly head again. And we're back up to the 70 vessels that we were at in January or February. So let's talk about this because in this article, it's talking about a number of different things. One of them is now they're blaming it on the national labor shortages.
Yes.
And, there's all sorts of different parts of the industry that's feeling this. And we've been hearing more about warehousing actually feeling that labor shortage and people not wanting to come back to work or can't come back to work and all sorts of different scenarios. But now it's actually hitting the ports. I mean, back in January, February, it was because of COVID, right? There was 1,800 people that were out of work because of COVID, and now it's labor shortages. So what are you, I mean, as a shipper, you must just be pulling your hair out because you're just like, what is next?
Yeah. No, I don't ask that because I don't want to know, but keep. But yeah, no, what's interesting is in January, February, it was only about, I think they hit 40 at the most. And that was like the most they've ever had. And now we're just hitting 70. Like, what's the limit on supply chain issues? Like, what's the ceiling, right? It's in the US right now, it's this weird chain effect because you have people buying stuff and you have people trying to fill inventory, but it's things, containers, and it's not seeming to be processed through. So there seems to be a holdup at warehouses, then the truckers are held up, the trains are held up, there's too many boxes, they can't get them back, then the boats are held up. Like it's a really interesting kind of if you can kind of get in the overview of it, of what's happening, but it's literally every piece of the chain is just somehow broken and there's no seeming quick fix. But it's also hard for us to understand, like, we're kind of, getting the numbers that it's like, well, people are buying stuff and people want to have stuff on the shelves, but somehow it's actually, there seems to be a real lag in it progressing out. Or we've all just over ordered. So the warehouses are all full. And that labor shortage, that's going to be a big one. And people continue to be dropping out of the labor shortage or labor force for a variety of reasons. I think we're still in the early stages of what they're calling like that big, great resignation. But
Well, the other thing that they talk about is they're blaming the size of the ships.
oh yeah, sure.
In this article, they're saying they've doubled and tripled in size over
Yeah.
the last 10 to 15 years. I mean,
Yeah.
yes.
That was just true.
Which is true. It's kind of common sense. I mean, we do want the ships to get bigger from 15 years ago because there's more goods that are moving.
Well, it's meant to be more efficient. But yeah, I think it's harder for the port to clear them. And at LA, the debate specifically at LA is that they don't do a lot of automation. They have a very strong labor union, which I'm all for. But they're very much holding out on any kind of automation or those types of robotic upgrades. Whereas other ports, even some digital platforms and tools, because they're worried about losing workers, which I understand, but I think, you have a port like Vancouver, they still have workers, even though they're just a little bit more automated. So that's a whole other interesting conversation. And as we know from the JOC, that's like a conversation.
That's a whole episode on its own.
But their contract, the ILU is the longshore workers, their contract is up next summer.
Uh-oh.
So they're basically we're all looking at like, okay, one, you're having this historic, we're sending you a bunch of boats, you're not getting them offloaded. So it's sort of a bottleneck. And then two, we're all looking at next summer, we're going to be coming into them renegotiating their labor contracts. And what is that going to mean?
So everybody looking at 2022 to be the year that we are going to get through this. You might
Maybe
for the first couple of months, but then we're going to have some issues come summer 2022, is what Audrey is predicting
just
on
on
Thoughts and
certain routes,
Coffee,
maybe. Yeah.
September 21st, 2021. We are going to refer back to this particular show.
And see
Anyway,
what's happened.
I wanted to ask you because the article also talks about China Golden Week. What the hell's? I haven't heard of.
Oh, yeah, Golden Week's the first week of October.
Yeah.
So traditionally, there's two periods for China, and we always talk about like Chinese Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
Right. And that's because that's a big one. That's like could be almost a month, depending on who's off when. Yeah. But there's a large closure for an extended holiday because, as most people know, a lot of Chinese people, they don't have holidays in the same way maybe that North Americans do, where you take a long weekend or, a lot of traditionally in the last decade, a lot of people lived at the factory. So that was their time to go home. But Golden Week happens. It's a labor holiday, the first week of October. And what essentially you kind of forget about it until it's right in front of you and you're trying to book something and there's blank sailings. Right. So there's almost always blank sailings there and a disruption because your factory's going to close. So like I've had situations where it's like they just didn't hand over the goods, went off on holiday, and then they came back and they're like, okay, we're ready. And you're like, well, now I'm 3 weeks off of
on top of everything
the sale they wanted. But that's also happening right now.
We've got to get to our next article. But one of the other things that I wanted to mention is they talked to Dollar Tree in this article. Yeah. And they said that a dedicated charter had one crew member test positive for COVID. And China would not let the vessel in. They had to redirect to Indonesia and get a whole new crew, which took an additional 2 months.
China is zero tolerance on COVID.
But even these companies that are chartering their own vessels are running into all sorts of different issues other than not being able to get space. And so it's just incredible. Anyway, so the next article that we're going to talk about is FedEx. So I didn't actually know this, but contractors can buy exclusive rights to specific areas for up to 3 years. And that is up, I believe, by 50%. So 10 routes actually cost $1.25 million with a profit of 25%, which I thought was cool. Now, FedEx, because of this, FedEx actually outweighs UPS because UPS is heavily unionized. Yeah. But some other things that this article talks about is FedEx Air is now at $42 billion, which is up 60%. Their ground is up to $30.5 billion, which is 3 times. And they went up by 23% in 2020 to 3.1 billion packages delivered. Now, what do you think about this article? I mean, the numbers and the percentages and the information in this article. I mean, I love the hustle, and that's why it's up there. But it's crazy, man.
Yeah. I think if you wanted a second job around the holidays this year, that might be an idea.
Well, and they're talking about investing in new software. So here, they said that FedEx Ground has revamped its business, right? Because they've got 5,000 plus contractors. And so what has happened is extended delivery, obviously, because people want to see deliveries 7 days a week. So it's gone from 5 to now 7 days, and they're delivering on Saturdays and Sundays. They've provided them new routing software. Obviously, as technology is growing and as it's changing, that's going to be happening, hopefully, on a regular basis. And they're also accepting both larger and smaller packages. So last mile delivery and, what FedEx is doing in the last mile delivery space is completely changing. And you can see, because in 2020 it was up 23%, I don't think that's going anywhere. They said at the end of this article, I'm going to order toilet paper online because I'm too lazy to go to the store, is not going to change. And this is kind of our new normal when we're looking at last mile.
Well, Amazon has created itself as the where you buy staples because they have I think my stepmom does it. She has like a grocery or a shopping list, and it prompts you like it'll calculate, okay, if you bought X amount of stuff, like it'll send you a prompt like it's time to refresh your detergent, it's time to reorder your this, and so it essentially can do like these shopping lists for you and then fulfill it. So you're like, it takes a lot of the, the emotional or mental stress out of like having stuff that you always need. You always need toilet paper or shampoo or toothpaste. It's like, it just sends it to you automatically, like every 3 months or something. How do you beat that? Go to the store? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I still go to the store.
I go to the store too. I don't order a lot of stuff online, but yeah.
I do order a lot of. I order a lot more stuff online than I used to.
This is the thing, because if you're busy and it's accessible and it's easy, they have your information. Like it just shows up. Most of the time, it's correct. Your order's correct. Like the packaging is a whole other story, which Sarah Scudder can get into.
But anyways, the article is in the comments, so go and check that out because there's some incredible numbers and stats in there. All right, we've got just over 4 minutes left.
We
need to dive into our third one. I wanted to talk about Peloton because before last fall, almost around this time, we were talking about how Peloton invested $100 million into air freight because of all of the back orders.
Yes.
Well, now, so what happened was there was Facebook groups about delays of Peloton deliveries, and they got 1,100 complaints about shipping delays. And that's why they actually invested the $100 million in air freight. But what it did was they're actually reporting a loss of $313.2 million. Part of that is because of shipping delays. Part of that is because of the recall on the treadmill. But one of the reasons why I want to highlight this and really talk about why this is important is because I always talk about how supply chain and customer experience are closely tied together. And this is a particular instance where this shows an actual loss of revenue because of the supply chain disruptions to the customer experience, which created a whole bunch of complaints, which created a huge loss in revenue. So, guys and girls, supply chainers everywhere, get together with your customer experience department and make sure that you guys are on top of all of this and you're working together to get that product to the end consumer, because this could be an issue.
I think it's really interesting because they, it's an example where, in this industry, a lot of times I've done it, you throw money at a problem. And they threw money at a problem, and either it was too little or too late, or, the other issue with the recall, like it didn't seem to make it. $100 million didn't make an impact. So
well, I think it did a little bit, right? Because they were able to get some deliveries in, but they definitely lost a whole bunch of revenue because people were waiting and complaining. But if you ever wanted a Peloton, now's the time to buy it because the prices are going down. And apparently they are coming out with a rower as well, which will be interesting because we're going to see what that means to their already supply chain issues. Because even though they spent $100 million on air freight last year, that does not mean that they are currently not experiencing the same supply chain disruptions that you are at Orchard or that Home Depot is seeing, that they're chartering their own vessels. And so with everything that's going on right now and the disruptions that are happening, I want to pay a close attention to what exactly they're doing, because that $100 million was last fall. What are they doing this fall? And what are they going to do with this new launch of the rower? Because as soon as you launch a new product, you have to have the inventory in. And if we're looking at 8.5 days delayed at the Port of LA, and you're looking at rollovers still of 3 to 4 weeks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how are these companies and how are these brands getting through these disruptions so that they don't see that $313 million loss because of supply chain disruptions? I mean, this is only one brand. And
Yeah.
there are multiple different brands that are going through this right now with everything that's going on. So pay close attention to these brands and what they're talking about when it comes to supply chain and how they're looking at their supply chains and what they're looking to do with their supply chains, because they're the ones that we want to really take a look at and see what they're doing and see how we can model, or see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and see what we can learn from. So we're going to be keeping a close eye, especially on those brands as well. Listen, we are almost 10 seconds before the 30-minute mark. We are going to finish early. Peter, you must be proud of me today. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another Thoughts and Coffee. This was amazing. Next week, I think I have Bill Hobbs joining me. He is a writer for entrepreneur.com, and you're not going to want to miss this one because I was featured in an article actually last week, and we're going to be talking about that and everything about supply chain as well. So thank you, Audrey. Thank you to everybody for joining us. We hope you have an amazing week ahead.